I love Pokemon, and believe it or not, I'm kind of fond of Splatoon as well, sometimes. Regardless, I was trying to think of video ideas where I combined more things I liked, and I thought, well, Splatoon and Pokemon would be a great mix. But of course, somebody has to have done this before, right? It seems too obvious to not have been done already. Oh, it hasn't. Okay, well, time to do exactly that, turning Splatoon characters into Pokemon. And if you enjoy this concept and video as a whole, this took a decent bit of effort, so it would be greatly appreciated if you did the YouTube thing, and like, comment, and subscribe if you'd like to see a potential part 2. Unless you're one of those weirdos that feels the need to say you won't like and sub in the comments because I politely asked you to do so, but hey, you know what, do that, that's okay, because it's free engagement anyways. Sorry, got a little carried away. Wait, are these Gmail bits supposed to end with an Okay, let's just get into it. Let's start with the most obvious lines first, tackling Inklings right out the gate. For these lines, my thought is to try and encapsulate the broad idea of these characters and their general personalities. For example, Inklings and Octolings are shown to be competitive, fun-loving, and energetic, so this is a great place to jump off from. With that, for our first Splatomon, if you will, that is not a good name for these, I went for a combination of the second and third Inkling development cycles depicted here, while making sure to design it in my own way to better reflect a general Pokemon design. This is my second time ever making Fakemons, so these designs were a struggle at times, but for this one I think I did an alright job. I went for blue ink as the base color, as I planned for this line to primarily be a water type. Look, I know that may sound weird to some people since Inklings dissolve in water, but in terms of lore, water isn't like an instant kill, like they can partake in some water activities. They have water parks after all. Regardless, I was trying to fill the requirements for starter types, so this was bound to happen to some capacity. Either way, say hi to Squadaddle, a combination of squid and skedaddle. Squadaddle is an energetic and playful Pokemon, often seen parading around a brush, which it uses to deface different surfaces with the ink its body produces, though it's rare to see them spit up ink to paint directly, unless startled. Squadaddles are seen as a nuisance in some parts of the region, as they tend to steal their brushes from local schools and markets. However, if Squadaddle can't find a brush, they may resort to using branches or similar instruments for their painting needs. Before we move on, I do want to say all these names are eligible for change. I mean, if you've seen my other art videos, you know I can't name stuff for the life of me. So feel welcome to leave ideas in the comments. Seriously, some of these names kind of suck. For the next stage, I wanted to continue up the line of Inkling development, while making it my own design and giving it that Pokemon feel to the best of my abilities. And I did struggle on this one for a bit, with my first sketch just feeling way too awkward and the proportions just kind of looking gross. However, it had some design cues I liked, so I used it as a jumping off point and whipped up a new sketch. And this one I quite liked, though looking back on it, I am unsure of some parts of it, mostly the fact that I gave it a shirt. I tried to do that thing where the Pokemon is wearing clothes, but also not really, as the clothes is clearly a part of their anatomy, say like Mawile or Gardevoir. But I can't say for sure if I sold that effect here. I still like how it looks, just unsure of that particular aspect. That being said, I can always take a page from Subjectively's book, again, and refine different aspects later on as I improve at making Fakemons. For now, I'm happy enough though. Ink Rush, a combination of ink and, well, rush. Like I said, I'm not one for good names. Regardless, ink brushes are known to be quite intelligent, using scraps they find to create or improve their brushes. This makes them significantly sturdier, so much so locals have seen them fling paint fast enough to shear through stone. Ink brushes are quite competitive, and can be seen battling other ink brushes for their brushes. This is often for sport more than need. For our final evo, I had an idea right away, yet I'm not as confident in the design. I like it, don't get me wrong, but I feel like it might be a bit too samey in the color palette, or maybe even a little under-designed, but if I added anything else, I feel like it would have been over-designed. Regardless, with this evolution, I embraced the more sporty and competitive part of their personality, making certain aspects reflect that of a gym instructor of sorts, while also keeping the paintbrush idea intact, having the brush be much more refined, but also still a bit janky to show that their craft has improved, yet is still very much a slap-together mess of parts. Cephalobind, a combo of the words cephalopod and bind, bind being both an art term and a play on how this Pokemon combines lost items to create their weapons. Cephalobind are extroverted Pokemon, often seen around populated areas where they seek out people and Pokemon to train with. Their competitive nature leads to them biting off more than they can chew, yet their deceptively creative minds tend to help them gain the advantage in unlikely circumstances. The Cephalobind's affinity for painting and high energy makes them especially helpful in certain industries like construction, where they can be found painting newly constructed buildings. I'm pretty happy with Squadaddle's line overall. I think there's areas to improve on, but with this being my first Fakemon since my OG video, I'm surprised they came out as solid as they did. Though, while writing the script, I can already see things I might want to improve on. So that is something to keep in mind for future videos. Logically, it's now time for our Pokefied Octolings, and I plan to do exactly that. Since there's no real development cycle for Octolings, well, I guess there's this picture from the Octo Expansion art book, but I don't really plan to use it, and instead came up with my own designs without much outside influence. With that, my first goal was to try to go with a completely different silhouette to Skedaddle, and that led to this much more squished and silly bobblehead looking design, which is super silly looking, but I can't help but love the ever-living daylights out of. Hey, editing garden here. Yeah, I don't know how I didn't see this until now, but this design it's literally just, it's just Toad School. Not actually, there is very much differences, but it's pretty similar. I didn't play a lot of Scarlet and Violet, but I was showing these designs off to a friend while in the midst of editing this, and they pointed that out, so oops, I guess this will be one of those designs I revisit for sure. Octoling, a combination of octopus and toddle. Toddle meaning a kid's unsteady walk, which I thought worked well with how tiny their little legs are, mixed with them being a first stage Pokemon. Octoddles are quite childish and lovable, leading them to be called by their trainers. However, they are quite intelligent for their size and use their cute demeanor to trick foes into lowering their guard. This trick tends to fall short though, as Octoddle isn't very strong. Squirtle and Octoddles are usually housed together, as despite their clashing personalities, they get along quite well. This design I once again didn't have much to base off of, but I've always been a sucker for those awkward and edgy middle stage starter designs. Look, I know people hate them, but they're just so funny to me. I love them, they're so goofy. I mean, they're usually pretty bad, but I can't help but love them. So I started with that, and I just did what felt natural in the moment, making this middle evil a moody teen of sorts. This design also had an OG sketch I really disliked, and I'm glad I started over, because it kinda stunk, and this new design is a lot more fun in my opinion. Taking some design cues from Octarian soldiers to really help sell the feel and look of the design. Introducing Octine. I think you know what two words I combined there, but for those in the back.
What? I can't hear you very well.
It's a joke. It's a combo of octopus and teen. Pretty on the nose there. Octines are notoriously moody Pokemon. Being coddled as an Octoddle has led to many of them having a resentment to their trainers. Octines can be found moping around warm locations like hot springs and beaches, where they are the most comfortable to practice their pyrotechnics, usually to the chagrin of locals. They may not like the presence of others, but ink rushes have been observed watching these training sessions from afar without Octine's interjection. I quite like this design, to be frank. I guess the only part I don't 100% know if I love is the clothing aspect. I think I pulled it off better here than Ink Rush. However, I can't say for sure if that's the case or if it's just my own bias. Either way, I'm more or less happy with it. As for our final evolution, I thought it'd be fun to take the idea of Octine putting on performances and running with that. However, my first sketch, like the others, just wasn't it. I was going to go with the more ballerina route, but decided against it and instead went for a more dark magic route. With this form still being a performer, yet instead of a ballerina, I took design cues from witches and mediums instead. Like cartoony mediums. I mean, actual mediums can kind of wear whatever, but you know what I mean, like the overly cartoony, silly ones. Think of it as instead of leaving the edgy middle stage like other Pokemon, they embraced it, which then comes full circle and makes them cool again. I mean, that's not always the case, but you know, in this case, I think the design's cool enough. With this design, I used their tentacles to make up the dress, which sounds disgusting, but I think it came out okay. Then I added little flames at the end of each tentacle, so they could shoot out like a sort of candle. Introducing Medolisk, a combination of medium and mollusk. Medolisk love to perform to all types of crowds, using its mastery over fire and strong tentacles to create complex shapes in order to awe onlookers. Though they are much less mopey than Octines, they are still quite reserved, only opening up to their trainers. However, a recent study shows they're only truly comfortable around other fire Pokemon and Cephalobines. This has seemingly puzzled many researchers due to their polarizing type differences. It seems more information needs to be gathered on the matter. I'm pretty happy with this design. There is things I wanted to add, like the little seaweed you can see on certain Octarian soldiers, but instead of having it seaweed, obviously it'd be like a stripe of fire. However, I thought it might be overcomplicating the design a bit, so I refrained. Besides that, I think this design definitely does that idea of clothing that's a part of the Pokemon much better than the prior Fakemons, and I'm super happy about that. As for our third evolutionary line, I don't have one quite yet. Yeah, I was having a ton of fun making these new designs, but it took quite a bit out of me. So consider this me testing the waters, and if this video does well, I'll happily make it a series. Hell, I started turning certain characters into Pokemon like Grizz. In fact, I more or less finished that design, but felt a little too weak. There's plenty of bear Pokemon, and they're all pretty unique, so I think the proportions work for a Pokemon design, to a degree at least. I think it's a tad boring as well. So I'll tweak that, and hopefully have Grizz plus one more 3-stage line and a few other mods based off pre-existing characters for next time. Like, maybe Callie? I don't know. I haven't made them yet. This silhouette is fake. I came up with this on the spot just to put something here. So I guess we'll have to see. And with that, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to do more. Bye!